Hello, Scream Demons, and welcome to the Screens from the Basement podcast with Sam and Casey. I am one of your creepy co hosts. I'm Casey.
Sam the Damned, and let's get screaming.
Taking another trip to the basement with us is screenwriter, director, and actor Dean Jacobs here to spread the good word on his latest film, Water Rites, releasing from Terror Films.
Water Rites follows a couple on a summer getaway on a lakeside home surrounded by a mysterious, privately owned lake, and they soon uncover secrets they may never return from. The film stars Dee Wallace, Lynn Lowry, Michael Berryman, Katie Bentz, and our very own guest, Dean Jacobs. Dean, welcome back to Screams from the Basement. Congrats on the movie, man.
Thanks, guys. I am glad to be back. Before we went on air, I mentioned I enjoy talking to you guys, so it's a treat to be back here with you and talking shop again for a new film.
Heck yeah, dude. This
Hell
this
yeah.
movie this movie's crazy, dude. Like it's so like moody and atmospheric, and there's a vibe from the outset
Yeah,
because you open this movie with a Shining homage. Tell us
absolutely.
tell us a little bit about that. That's ambitious as hell, man. Like I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I expected a question of along those lines of, what were some of your inspirations? And that it's not the opening sequence, but it's
Right.
very close to one of the opening sequences of the film. I guess it sort of is an opening sequence because you have that kind of cold open, and then we cut to Los Angeles traffic. But yeah, I mean that sequence when they're traveling along that mountain road to the Overlook Hotel in The Shining, it's picturesque. That booming score underneath. So yeah, I took that. Plopped it right in my film. What's the saying? Imitation is the highest form of flattery, or
Yeah.
something along those lines. And so yeah, and I think as horror filmmakers, a lot of us do that. And so yeah, The Shining was definitely a big one, especially that opening driving sequence. And my director of photography, Ethan Lacey, is really talented, and he's a certified drone operator and just does great work. So I loved the way it came out, and it's a great entryway into this world that we're going to be spending an hour and 40 minutes in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and much like how The Shining uses that to introduce not only the setting, but then you get introduced to the family in the
Yeah,
car talking about the Donner family in that movie. Here you get introduced to yourself and Katie in the car, our two leads in the movie. So it's a very thematic tie-in, and for me, I want to talk first of all about these locations because like these locations are wonderful. They're so beautiful. You shot at Lake Arrowhead,
yeah.
if I'm not mistaken. Tell us a little bit about the little bit of the location scouting on this and getting these locations that are so integral to a movie set on a lakeside front.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I wanted to create, something that was visually entertaining along with the story itself. Um, and when you're dealing in folk horror and things that are a little bit of a slower burn, you have that atmospheric, tension that can build there. And it's also sort of that juxtaposition between this picturesque setting, everything beautiful, and things move a little bit slower up in the mountains, and it's a nice resort town. But then you contrast that with the story that we're telling, and I think it's that nice dichotomy of this beautiful picturesque place, and then that nefarious undercurrent under everything. But the way that I found that location is Lake Arrowhead sits high in the mountains, San Bernardino Mountains, about an hour and a half outside of Los Angeles. Um, and my friend moved out of LA proper with his then wife, looking to get away from, the hustle and bustle of LA, and wanted like a nice, quiet, secluded place in the mountains. And they found a house at Lake Arrowhead. And so he would invite us up on the weekends and holidays, and we would go up and hang out at this cabin in the woods. And that's when I developed or, first uh, was introduced to the area. Um, I fell in love with it. It's exactly like it looks on screen. It's this tiny little mountain town that has a beautiful lake that sits there. And the more time you spend there, you see the intricacies and the interesting things about the town. I'll just say that. So yeah, it's a real place, and I just fell in love with it going to visit my friend up there. And through the course of spending all that time up there and getting to know the place, I was like, oh, I think I can tell a story here. So yeah, it's a beautiful town, and that in folk horror, that setting is sort of important to telling the story. So yeah, Lake Arrowhead's a great place.
So, folk horror is such a like lush and diverse subgenre in and of itself. There's so many different kinds of even folk horror. What specific folk horror like movies or I guess just folk horror inspirations did you pull from? Like what in particular got you?
Yeah, I mean, I noticed that in your intro you said you introduced yourself as Sam of the Damned.
Yeah.
Um, And though I'm not sure if Village of the Damned would be categorized as specifically folk horror, that's one of the inspirations. Um,
Yeah.
those British countryside Hammer films, obviously The Wicker Man's a big inspiration. And then
Hmm.
more modern, Ari Aster, Midsummer, is definitely one. And then even, something like a Rob Reiner Misery in there is a little bit of an inspiration. And then we already touched upon The Shining. So yeah, those are some of the big inspirations.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and looking at the behind the scenes on this movie, it was nice to see how many returning faces and names showed up from your previous work, The Trip,
Yeah.
which always shows that you guys want to, as a group, learn together, grow together, make movies together. What
Yeah.
are some things you as a group, both in front of the camera, behind the camera, took from The Trip and applied to this movie? And you're like, well, we learned something on that we can now apply to this movie. What's something that you guys did on Water Rights?
Well, I think in terms of that crew coming back, because most of them did. There were a couple replacements, but for the most part, it's the producing team all the way down to our G&E, our grip and electric department. Like all those people came back. And to answer the question, I think what I learned and what we learned is that we work really well together, and we have fun doing it. And if you look at the name of my production company, it's Collective Imagination Productions. The idea being that all of these talented people come together and we collectively use all those talents and all the imagination that we have to tell a good story. So that was the first thing that we came together. We created this thing, The Trip, in 2023. I'm really proud of it, and we had a great time doing it. And a lot of filmmaking, especially when you don't have millions of dollars to do it, um, you have to be able to trust the people that you've put in place around you to be able to take care of the things that need to be taken care of. Um, and I trust all those guys. With the story that I tell, these stories are, very close to me, very personal. It means a lot to me to be able to tell these stories, and so to put together that team to help me do it, it means a lot to me to have those people that I can trust and I know are talented and will help, bring the story to life. And the other great thing is that, um, there is a feeling on my film sets, and it goes back to budget too, in that whatever needs done, anybody's gonna do it. So, when we were on The Trip, and one of the first days we were filming, I'm in the backyard picking up dog shit. And one of the crew members who I had never met is like, "Oh, I've never walked onto a set and seen the director, picking up dog crap in the yard before." And I was like, "Well, the dog shit needs picked up.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah,
going to do
someone's
it."
got to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing, it's all hands on deck. We all come together and do whatever needs done to tell the story and get the movie made. So yeah, I flew most of those guys out to Los Angeles to make this movie. They're all Pennsylvania based, with the exception of the director of photography, who is from Pennsylvania but moved to Los Angeles after we filmed The Trip. So when it came time to put this movie together, I called all those guys and said, "Hey, I'm making this movie in California. Will you come help me do it?" And they did. So I'm real grateful to all of them.
That's amazing. And I mean that goes to show, like, as a director, like, you clearly create a vibe on set that people like coming to and like working with. And I
I
think
hope so.
that's, yeah. I think that's really evident, especially like in front of the camera. You're acting in this, you're a lead character, and you have this chemistry with all the other, like, side characters and other people that you interact
Thanks.
with. And it's so relatable and so naturalistic in, like, the dialogue, the acting, all of that. What, like, how do you go about creating those relatable characters? It kind of like, this movie's almost like and I felt this way about The Trip, where it's almost like a mumblecore movie that's interrupted by these, like, spurts of horror, and I
Yeah,
love that
yeah,
vibe.
definitely.
Yeah.
Um, there's it's conscious in my writing process, especially in the dialogue, to make it as natural as possible. In the real world, in our real lives, conversations don't go like plot points. It's not like we're having a back and forth and like, I need to say this right now so that I can move us along. That's not how we talk to each other. Um, so that's always, I'm very cognizant in that, in my writing, in the approach to dialogue and character interactions, to make it feel as natural as possible, even in a world that we've created in water rights, that these locals and these interactions aren't natural. There's an eeriness, a left of center, like an uncomfortable feeling in them. But it's still two people running into each other in the grocery store or an antique shop or out to dinner. So yeah, I make a concerted effort to write my dialogue and write my scenes as natural as possible. And it's not only me. When we get on set and the actors are there, Evan Sloan, who's been in both of these films and has produced both of them, is really great with pitching ideas on the day, something to lead us into a scene, just talking about nothing, tertiary stuff, and then we'll get to the meat of what that scene needs to be. But to keep it conversational and light, and the way people talk is important. So yeah, it's a lot in the writing, and it's definitely a lot in the acting too. But again, if you see, if my portrayal, my acting comes off as natural, it's probably because I wrote it. you know.
Yeah.
And remind me, you did you come to acting first, or behind the scenes writing, directing first?
I was an actor first, so I grew up in local theater in Pennsylvania. I was Pinocchio in Pinocchio,
Nice.
Charlie Bucket and Charlie and the Chocolate
Yeah.
Factory. I did a lot of stage stuff as a kid. So acting definitely came first. I was always a writer, but for years it was just for myself. I didn't know
Yeah.
what or when I was going to be able to do with anything that I wrote, until basically the pandemic. Like a year or two before we shot the script, I had written all these things, and The Trip had been written like 8 years earlier. And we're all sitting around in our houses lamenting our state and life at the moment during COVID, and it was like, why am I not doing everything that I can to get a movie made? And so that's sort of when I, forward facing, went from strictly an actor into a filmmaker, a producer, a writer. But I have been writing things for myself for years.
Yeah. And do you feel like that experience of actor first, going into the creative, behind the scenes creative side, kind of after that, do you think that's helped you write characters that are a little bit closer to home, and also being able to portray on screen what you would like out of your actors? Do you feel like that's really, really helped push the directing side forward?
Yeah, yeah, without a doubt. Being an actor, you know how other actors work and think, and that doesn't mean that every actor's process is the same. But there is a baseline of, knowledge and approach to, telling a story, filling a role, that you just get from being an actor and, going through the process. So yeah, it definitely helps a lot to be able to communicate with actors as a fellow actor. I wouldn't necessarily say that, my background as an actor helps in any of the technical aspects, because I'm pretty ignorant when it comes to, I'm getting better, but I'm pretty ignorant when it comes to cameras and lenses and what the lighting setup needs to be. So it's that is still a learning process. But as
But
far
then
as
again, like you said, you need to have that team around you that you put that
exactly,
trust into, that knows all of that stuff. They're not going to be in front of the camera. Like, come on, most guys who know all the lenses don't want to be in front of the camera. They want to
Yeah.
they want to be controlling that. So
yeah,
yeah, that's why you put that trust into those people.
yeah, yep,
Yeah.
100%.
So I wanted to bring up something from our last interview because it's stuck with me and I love this. But on our last interview I asked you if you storyboarded or you shot listed, and you said neither. It all is just up here. And I loved that. I'm like, that's just so confident and so self-assured, and I love that. Um
I
and
am
like
that person to a fault sometimes.
it's just something that's always stuck with me from our first conversation. So did you stay with that? Like, you didn't storyboard, you didn't shot list here,
If it was up to
or
me, I wouldn't have done it. I would have done it the same way this time around. But my director of photography kind of begged me multiple times to put together a storyboard.
so
So I gave him a rough storyboard this time around. And I
okay.
think I had mentioned when we talked the first time, it's that, like, even before I start writing, the very early stages, imagery comes to my mind. And then
Yeah.
once I get into the writing process and I'm, fine tuning those scenes, I can see it all there. And so when we're there on the day and we're setting up a camera, I know what I'm looking for. But, you know, I'm not the only person that is carrying out this vision. And what works
Right.
for me doesn't necessarily work for everyone else. So if my director of photography wants a storyboard, I'll give him a storyboard.
Nice. Yeah. I was wondering, I was curious because there are some kind of elaborately like framed shots in here where there's stuff in the foreground and the background and
Yeah,
characters in the mix, like, and I was just like, God, that's like, I mean, some of these shots are just gorgeous and they're so impressive. So,
thank you. Yeah,
yeah.
I'll credit my DP to a lot of that. Naturally, I'll look for a shot and have an idea of what I want in mind. But it's a collaborative effort, and my DP is really great, has a great eye, and is able to, capture what looks best on screen to, tell the story.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Nice.
This is kind of going off that. One of my favorite things in the movie is when you guys are walking through the forest and you see all the lanterns kind of spreading across the trail, kind of lighting the trail. Was that already at the lakeside, or is that something that you took from your script and incorporated into the actual setting that you guys shot in?
The lanterns aren't there in the way that they are in this story. Going back to, imagery that I have even before I start writing, or the very early stages, those lanterns were one of those things that, like, I just kept seeing these lanterns.
Yeah.
And so that was just a vision that I had in my mind. And so I kind of built things to fit those lanterns into the broader story.
And it's such a great way to light that you don't see in a whole lot of movies. Like you said, though, you saw them a lot in those like Hammer horrors where they just used a lantern or a candle to light things. Nowadays, it's
Yeah.
a cell phone or just really dark and you can't see anything. So
And I mean,
it's a great way to light. Yeah.
doesn't that sort of go with the vibe of that world that we're in? You're up
Yeah.
in this tiny little town. A lot of it takes place at night, so those lanterns fit into that too. And if you notice, one of the things that I love about this film is that I think it's as fun, or potentially more fun, on a second viewing, to go back and, like, pick up little details that maybe you missed the first time, or was there an Easter egg there that I would have clued me into what is to come? But if you look throughout the film, there are lanterns in there that I didn't place. They're just there. And it's just sort of that, kismet, that serendipitous sort of thing that like, oh, the world's working with us to tell this story.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So very much like the trip too, you have some like heavy hitters in the horror genre in this movie. You get to work
Yeah.
with like the legendary Lynn Lowry and Dee Wallace and Michael Berryman.
Yeah.
Like, and every time one of them popped up, I was like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme. Like I was just like, oh hey.
Yeah.
Like what is it like getting to cast these people that have like these like prolific legacies, and how is it working with them on set?
Uh, to be able to cast them, it's an absolute thrill. I had written these roles. I had Barbara Crampton in mind for the Lynn Lowry role at one point.
Gotcha.
But Lynn was always pretty high on my list, if not number one, number two. Dee's role was written for her. I
Okay.
was going to go after Dee Wallace no matter what. And, if she turned me down, so be it. But the role was written for her. Um, and the Michael Berryman character didn't even come until later.
Okay.
The world already existed, and Dee was attached, and Lynn was attached, and Michael just kept coming to my mind, and there was space for another character to like, kind of fit into the smaller world in the broad world that we're in. And so I wrote that for Michael, um, knowing that if he signed on and was willing to do it, great. But if he didn't, I could also one find someone else or just kind of like take that character out of the movie. Um, but
Yeah.
it's a joy when you're able to cast them, and it's gratifying and reassuring to know that these people who are extremely talented have been in the industry for so long, and have worked with these people that I've admired, as a movie lover, and then once I'm in the industry, like a Wes Craven or someone like that, to have these people reassure me and give me the confidence that this thing that I wrote, the story that I'm telling is good. And not only is it good, but it's good enough for them to be like, I want to be a part of this. Um, that is a fantastic feeling. And then
Yeah.
to get there on the day and to have them all there and to be able to work with them is fantastic. But one of the other fun things is that I got to see the three of them kind of just fall into this relationship together because they tangentially know each other through, well, Michael and Dee know each other through at least one film that they have made, but they all
Right.
go to these horror conventions, so they know each other enough. And so day one, they're in three consecutive little cabins. They're staying right next to each other in Lake Arrowhead. And so they're going to dinner and lunch every day together, and they're coming to set, the three of them all together, and telling great stories. So it's just fun. It's to go from the kid that watched these movies, knew that I wanted to make movies and tell stories, to be an adult and look around on set and being like, holy shit, I'm living my dream with the people that like I grew up watching and thinking maybe one day I'd be able to get to do this with the likes of some of these people, to actually being able to do it. It's, it means the world to me. They're all great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my follow-up question is directly related to that. If someone's listening to this and in that seat where you were, where you're like, oh my gosh, now I can live my dream where I'm on set with a Dee Wallace, with a Michael Berryman. I'm making a movie I wrote with people that I trust and love
Yeah.
making movies with. What's your biggest piece of advice you have for someone listening who has yet to be in that situation? What would you tell them going forward?
Start and just keep going. You will never get anywhere if you never start. I still live by the mantra, and if we go back and look at the podcast that we did from the trip, I probably say the same thing when we talked the last time, but it's I started telling myself, one foot in front of the other, just keep doing the next right thing. And that's what you have to do. And even if you're making a movie for $5,000, 10, 25, whatever it is, you know, it's all possible. You don't realize it's possible until you start doing it. But if you never start doing it, you will never know. So you have to take that first step. And I told myself that, you know, if in the course of making the trip, or now water rights, if I hit a roadblock, I would stop, assess, and, you know, okay, how do I get around this? And I kind of never really hit those roadblocks. But you just have to start, because if you don't start, you're never going to know. And that's the best advice I can give any filmmaker, anybody that wants to do anything. Just go out and do it, you know. And if it's not the level you first thought it was going to be, that's okay. You know, work within the means that you have. And if you put your heart into it, you're going to leave proud of it. You're going to leave with something that you can say that, you know, I made and I'm happy with and I can live with for the rest of my life. So just do it.
Hell yeah. That's great advice.
Nike was on to something there.
Yeah. Yeah. Start and then just don't stop.
Yeah.
Great advice. I love that. Well, Casey, should we hit Dean with our double feature question?
Let's do it.
All right. So Dean, as you know, on this show, we're a big fan of double features. And so we like to close off every interview with a fun question where sometimes it's fun, sometimes the guest is like, "Oh no." But what if you were going to program water rights at any kind of screening, and you wanted to make a killer double feature with water rights, what movie would you choose to play either before or after it for the ultimate folk horror double feature? Or it doesn't even have to be folk horror. If there's a left field idea you've got.
Well, I'm more prepared this time around because I knew you asked that question last time, so I figured it was coming this time. I would say there's a few options. Obviously, you know, The Wicker Man would be a good suggestion, but
Yeah.
I think that I would probably put The Hills Have Eyes, because it has a little bit of that, you know, vacation kind of road trip aspect to it. It has a little bit of that outsiders stuck in this place where the locals, let's call them the locals, you know, are out for blood, or, you know, are making it known that they're not in a place where they're welcome. And then Michael Berryman and Dee Wallace are both in that movie. So rolling from The Hills Have Eyes into Water Rights, I think that would be my suggestion for the double bill on that.
Yeah. Great double feature idea. Absolutely.
I was hoping you were going to say that, because as soon as you said, "Oh yeah, Dee and Michael worked on a movie together," I had like a brain fart. I'm like, "What movie did they do together?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, like really young Dee Wallace is in The Hills Have Eyes." That's right.
Yeah, I actually just watched that, I don't know, a week or two ago for the umpteenth time, and you still notice different stuff. And then I don't think I had watched it since I had worked with Michael and Dee, and it's just so fun to see both of them much younger. It's just so much fun. And then having worked with Dee, and Dee is, I guess you'd call her a spitfire or a firecracker. Like she portrays on screen for the most part the endearing, loving, motherly sort of role. But Dee has a streak to her. You know, she'll drop some explicit language. She does this great thing before takes. I don't know if she would want me telling you, but I'm going to tell you anyway, where essentially she gets her energy ready, but it's like a vocal thing too. So before every take, and not knowing that she was going to do it the first one or two times she does it, you're like, what was that? But before every take, she'll go, "Get ready, I'm going to spike." She'll go, "Oh!" And then go into the scene. So to hear this guttural noise coming and not knowing who it is at first, and then being like, "Was that Dee Wallace doing that?" really, really great. So yeah, she's fun, and that was a little intricacy of her as a performer that I'd like to share. Um,
That's
so yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, just
Like we
to
said, every actor has their own process.
has their process, and you'd never expect
yeah,
that from Dee, but it works.
yeah,
It definitely works.
yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, Dean, thank you again for coming on and sharing this movie with us, and coming on to chat Water Rights with us. If people out there listening are interested, where can they find the movie, and then where can they find you online to stay tuned with what's next?
Yeah, the movie, as you mentioned, is coming out through Terror Films. I don't have a specific release date yet, but I'm assuming it's going to be in the next 2-ish months. And that's going to be streaming worldwide. You'll obviously be able to find it on Tubi and Amazon Prime and Apple TV. Um, the trip is everywhere. And so I expect Water Rights to be the same. You know, I'm with the same distributor, and I should have a firm release date pretty soon. And you can follow along on all the socials. It's Water Rights Film across the board. So Water Rights Film on Twitter, Water Rights Film on Instagram and Facebook. Um, and that's where you can find everything that you need to know about the film and all the release date information and where you can watch it. Water Rights Film. And again, thank you guys for having me on, because I do like talking to you. It's fun, it's easy, and I appreciate you helping, promote independent filmmakers, horror filmmakers.
Hell yeah, dude. We'll have you on anytime. Next movie you got, send it our way.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal: providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.